Hey there, I'm Emily D. Baker, the internet's go-to legal analyst, breaking down the legal side of the pop culture and entertainment stories we can't stop talking about. I'm a big fan of the cursey words. I've been a licensed attorney for over 17 years, but this is not legal advice. This is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not... Let's get into it.
Continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Kenney, before lunch, we talked about that you had approximately 125 live rounds from the 1883 set that came back. Is that correct?
That's great. That's correct.
And you also testified that the state took 10 live rounds total from your place, correct?
I don't recall that. No, they from the 45 Colt ammunition, they took all of them.
And we've seen the pictures, there was 10 total on what was shown today. Do you recall that testimony?
10 live?
Yes.
Maybe we need to approach.
Mr. Kenney, do you have reloading equipment?
I don't.
What?
I don't.
Did you recall on the interview on July 11th, 2023, I asked you if you had any reloading equipment and you said, I do?
Possibly in California. Possibly.
Okay. Does that mean you do have reloading equipment?
Well, PDQ doesn't have reloading equipment, and we don't reload.
Okay, sir, but do you recall when I asked you, now, do you have any reloading equipment? Your answer was, I do.
Personally, in California, there may be. I haven't seen it in years.
Okay, and you know how to convert a dummy round from into a live round, don't you?
Hypothetically.
Yeah, because hypothetically, don't you recall telling Detective Hancock that if the camera crew, let me just get the wording so I don't misquote it. If the camera crew wanted to send a little going away present, and then you described the process. Do you recall that?
No, I don't recall it.
If I showed this to you, would it refresh your memory?
Sure.
Okay. It's going to be on this page and then the following page. Okay.
How far do you want me to read down?
Just the highlighted portions.
Okay.
Mr. Bowles, is that the July 11 transcript?
That is the November with Detective Hancock. Yes, sir, does that refresh your memory?
It does.
So now do you recall having a conversation with Detective Hancock about how one could turn a dummy into a live round?
Yes. Yes.
And can you tell Jerry, how would you do that?
Well, the easiest thing would be to have reloading equipment, press out the inert primer in first, but if we imagine a dummy round where the bullet is actually pressed into the case, and you had an inert primer you'd need a fairly complicated setup of reloading equipment. You need either a kinetic bullet puller to remove the bullet from the case. If you used a set of pliers, it would mangle the bullet and prevent seating afterwards in a die if you had reloading equipment. So you'd have to somehow remove the bullet from the case. We're assuming there's a BB or a number 2 lead shot rattle that would have to be removed. You'd have to have a decapper to press out the inert primer, and then you could use the same bullet, assuming it wasn't mangled, and you'd have to have a live primer and a charge of powder, and then be able to have the appropriate die and seat it to the appropriate depth, as well as putting in, again, the fresh primer, the primer primer installer.
Okay, and then you'd have to get the proper amount of grains of powder in there as well.
Yes.
Okay, and what would that generally be?
Well, historically, I think in the pre-1900 era, it would be roughly 28 grains of powder from memory, if that's correct. And then it depends on the powder as well, all the way up to the case capacity, which means essentially you fill it up all the way and maybe even press the bullet into the case so it's compacting the powder.
Now, I want to go over something you said before lunch on the leathers. You said that these were mailed back from the Old Way movie by Hannah to yourself, and that you provided these to her, correct?
Yeah, they were shipped back via FedEx.
And they were shipped in a box from the Old Way, and then you never removed them from the box, correct?
That's correct.
So, but then would you agree with me then that those leathers were then used on the Rust side?
I don't know that. All I know is that box, and I'm unaware of the quantity in there. I did take a photo at the time. I don't know how many were in there and whether or not they used them.
Okay, so you opened it up and you looked in it.
Yes, I opened it up. I took a picture.
Okay. With regard to the prop truck search, we didn't talk about that yet. When you went to the set on October 27th, you already had the code to the safe, correct?
Yes.
And Sarah had given that to you?
Yeah, she sent it to me by text.
Sarah was technically your employee of PDQ Props, correct?
Sure, she was the representative of PDQ for the Rust production.
And she's the one that called you right after the shooting incident. You all talked for 30 seconds to a minute. Is that right?
It was a very quick conversation, yes.
And your testimony under oath is that you did not tell her to throw any of those rounds away.
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay. But then she did throw them away.
I learned about that months later.
Okay. And did you know that guns had been transported from the cart? Did you?
No.
Did you tell her to do that?
No.
Okay. Did you train Sarah before she worked on Rust?
I did.
And you trained her in what? In gun safety or what?
Yeah, the basics of using blank adapted guns and blanks and dummy rounds on a set.
And I take it you never trained her to throw away dummy rounds after a scene.
Oh, well, I don't recall that conversation or even indicating at what point you would want to throw away dummy rounds.
Because they're rented, right?
They are rented.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Now, you also gave Hannah shells on the Old Way movie, spent shells. Do you recall that?
Spent shells? No.
You didn't provide her 2 bags of spent shells?
No.
You knew that Joe Swanson load Trail Boss type powder. That's one of the powder he uses, correct?
Sometime after a meeting with Detective Hancock, trying to trace down the origin of the live rounds found on Rust, that was part of the questioning of that I did call him and say, do you recall?
And don't get into what he said,
Okay.
but your impression after it was that your understanding is he loads Trail Boss powder.
There were, yes.
Okay. You also remember telling Detective Hancock after you called Troy Teskey that he was willing to provide a box and a half of reloads, the same batch from Joe Swanson?
I remember that conversation. I don't remember the quantity of which he was willing to provide.
Okay, so in any event, whatever the quantity was, you knew that Troy Teskey had rounds from the same batch of live reloads from Joe Swanson.
That's what I understood.
And you understood that he was willing to provide those, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I want to show you, sir, some of the pictures that have been introduced, and I want to go over these with you. First one, Mr. Kenney, is defendant's L18, and I want to show you this photo. Can you tell the jury what this depicts?
It depicts a shelf at PDQ's office in Albuquerque with a blank supply.
Okay, now I want you to look at the box at the top. It says, let me see if I can zoom in, 30 Mauser. See that?
Yes.
Does that appear the font similar to the font on the box that we saw earlier? It was in Lieutenant Benavides' vehicle in the set of rust.
Well, I recognize that as a Joe Swanson label.
And you have Joe Swanson labels then in your business, correct?
Yes.
Now, the other thing that I've noticed on some of these photos, and I'll show you, but that some of them have JS, some of them don't. Is that a fair statement?
I noticed the JS. I don't notice when it's omitted.
How do you get those labels? Do you make those labels?
No, that's all a Joe Swanson manufacturer and supply.
Okay. I want to show you defendant's L15. And that's, we've seen this earlier on a different angle. This is more of a close-up. What are the boxes to the right of the shelf?
There are, well, I know that shelf fairly well. There's a mixture of, on top, we've seen a collection, what appear to be 12 gauge blanks.
Okay, and then how about the boxes underneath? And I'm going to point to these boxes in here.
Yeah, more blanks stored in bulk.
Just stored together in bulk.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Kenney, how about these loose rounds in the bag up here by the firearms? Do you see those? Not loose, they're in a baggie, are they?
Yeah, again, stored in bulk. From memory, I think they're 500 per bag, approximately.
What type of rounds are those?
They look to be 223.
Are you certain?
No.
Okay. And how about defendant's L2? What is this scene? Oh, jeez, sorry. What is this scene here? Defendant's L2.
That's in the backyard
And what
of PDQ's headquarters or PDQ's space in Albuquerque.
What are all the boxes there for?
They're just waiting to be thrown out.
And you know how long they've been sitting there before they were thrown out?
Well, in that pile is one of the boxes is from the shipment of the new guns from Pieta. So some of it very recent.
From Pieta before the movie?
From before the movie, correct.
Okay, so that would have been in October, early October, when you got that Pieta. So this was late November.
Yeah, so they've been there roughly a month.
Month and a half. Okay. How about defendant's L5? Can you tell Jerry what this is? Is that
It's the same view, the same stack of boxes looking to the side gate exit entry.
Okay. Sir, how about defendant's L6? You can tell the jury what's in that picture?
There'll be a lot of empty gun cases. Some of them are populated with guns and other props. Underneath, there's a bunch of locked cabinets with firearms and other various props inbound and outbound.
Okay, so some of these are live or real weapons?
Yeah, primarily these are going to be live. I'm going to say 90%. There's also the possibility that there are other things in there that are inert or replicas.
Okay, let me show you defendant's L10 now. And can you describe what room is this in PDQ?
That would be the coffee room.
Okay. And that's the coffee room. Now, is there any ammunition stored in the coffee room?
No.
Okay. I want to show you now L32. If you can tell the jury what this picture is.
That is the bathroom with blanks, and appears to be at the very bottom is indicated live ammo of the gray bins.
And so you've got live ammo, and then on top of that, do you have blanks or dummies?
Those are all blanks.
Okay. So you've got them, and they're not in the same container in this picture, but you've got them all stacked up on each other, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is that something that you would commonly do, is store this live ammo in the bathroom?
No, not commonly. It was just short on time and offloading the Sprinter, and got to put it somewhere quick and get back to Texas or California or whatever it might be.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Kenney, then I want to show you if you recognize defendant's L35. That's a box that says 45 LC. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what is that?
That is a box that that I populated with Thale Reed's 1883 Cowboy Training Camp live ammo.
Okay, now on that particular box itself, it's not marked live, is it?
No.
Okay. And so the rounds around it and in the box, do you know if these loose rounds are live?
I would assume that they are live.
Okay. Do you recall what defendant's L40 is?
No, the Thale Reed's green ammo box.
Okay. And that was found in PDQ crops.
Correct.
Okay, sir, then I want to show you earlier, this is defendant's L43. Earlier, you talked about this photo. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and I think you said that this was the dummies you had provided, correct?
Yeah, before polishing and populating in the white box provided to Sarah Zachary. Yes.
Okay. Now, as you look at this photo, this round up here, isn't that a blank?
Yeah, that's a spent blank.
And then how about this round right here, right where I'm pointing here?
That's another spent blank.
Okay. So this was not all dummies. This also had spent blanks in it.
Correct.
Okay. Now the sheriffs did not seize this. They did not seize these at the time of the search. Were you aware of that?
Yes.
Okay. I want to show you defendants D. And if you can tell the jury what this is.
That's a maintenance bench.
A bench to do what?
Maintenance of firearms.
Okay. So this is where you maintain the firearms?
Yeah, there's gloves there, and some cleaning products. That would be one of them. Yes.
What are these rounds down here? They look like shotgun shells. What are these?
From memory, that was a project on a previous film.
Okay, and then you have rounds in the back here. Do you know what those are?
I can't see
It's hard to see.
Okay, I see dummy blanks. Shall I circle it?
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Right there. Yep. It says 45 ACP dummy blanks.
Now, when you say dummy blanks, is that another type of round, or are there dummies and blanks?
Instead of chambering a dummy round, it's better to chamber a dummy blank in inert one-piece extrusion. And it's a safer way of doing it. If we have call at some point in the action where somebody needs to chamber a round that is inert. Dummy rounds are problematic in semi-automatic and automatic firearms. And if upon repeated chambering, the components can come loose. So Joe Swanson came up with this invention, which is a dummy blank.
Dummy blank, okay. And what is these tools in the back, the yellow and green?
One is an Allen wrench set. The green one is a Torx set.
What do you use those for?
Again, it would just be, actually, the yellow handled ones are used commonly to attenuate the flash of semi-automatic and fully automatic weapons.
Defendant's BB, what is that equipment or device right here?
Those are a pair of vices, small vices.
Is that your gun maintenance table as well?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, defendant's S, is this, you recognize that?
I do.
And is this your box as well?
It is.
Are those live rounds?
Yes. Well, the box, I remember writing 45 long Colt and thinking that this is odd not to write dummy or blanks or specify what it is. It's 45 long Colt because it's 45 long Colt live. And I don't need to write live. It's just live.
45 long Colt. Okay.
Yeah.
And defendant's V, can you tell the jury what that is?
Those are Joe Swanson blanks.
Defendant's AA, again, we have those Mauser boxes at the top of that font, and that's a Joe Swanson font, is that right?
Those are definitely Joe Swanson boxes and fonts
Okay,
that I commonly see from him.
okay. This is defendant's Y, and again, let me show you the overall picture, but you see that?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell the jury what that is?
That's that same wooden shelf holding blank rounds.
Okay, and again, we have at the top these 300 blackout. Is that the Joe Swanson font?
It is.
Okay. And you see some of these boxes, they got the JS, like on the 9mm.
I see that. Yes.
Okay. That's what I was noticing before, but you said there on some of them and some of them.
I commonly, I notice, bless you, I see the JS, but if it's omitted, it's not, it's just not something I notice.
Okay, and I want to show you defendant's X now. What is this picture?
That's that same wooden shelf.
Okay. And defendant's W. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, that's the top of the black bookshelf that's adjacent to the wooden cabinet.
Okay, defendant's Z. Can you tell us what that is?
Same wooden shelf.
Okay. What are the rounds on the right in this bin here?
Those are small bags of 25, more than likely it's 25 ACP and 32 ACP bags of blanks.
Defendant's U, again, these tools.
It's the same, same Allen wrench set and Torx wrench on top of the maintenance table.
Okay, defendant's CC. You see that?
I do.
And this box over here, is that a Joe Swanson?
It is.
Okay. And these spent shells, what are those? What caliber?
I can't tell from this photo.
Okay. Do you know what these spent shells were doing here?
I don't recall.
Those are the kind of thing that can be reloaded, correct?
Yeah, unless a case is torn, it's become brittle and started to fracture, you can reload it.
This is defendant's T, and that's is this the live ammo from 1883? That box?
It is.
Okay. I want to show you defendant's N27, and I'm going to show you that upright, but then I'm going to turn it around. Is that your writing on the blue box?
It is.
Okay. And defendant's N29, is that same box?
It is. It's one side or the other. Because, yeah, both have a label just like that.
Okay.
Both ends.
Okay. Now, a couple more questions on the prop truck that I forgot to ask you. When you were going there, do you recall telling Sarah to put a piece of tape over the safe?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the purpose of that?
Well, I wanted to make sure that nobody got into the safe before the law enforcement showed up.
One last series of questions on the disagreement that Hannah and Sarah had, you were talking about earlier, and that was over the negligent discharge or accidental discharge, you called it?
Accidental discharge, yes.
Okay, sir, do you recall telling Hannah that Sarah was her boss and not to push it?
Yes.
You were basically telling her to back off, reporting anything? Shoot, I'm sorry, jeez. Sorry, Judge. Siri picked up this thing. Do you recall telling Hannah something like to back off because she wanted to report to production?
It wasn't that she wanted to report it to production because Sarah had already reported it herself. That was the issue.
Okay. But in any event, you told her that she should just move on.
Yeah.
Okay, Your Honor, may I have just one moment? Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Kenney, is it your testimony that the 45 caliber live rounds at PDQ were reloads?
To my knowledge, yes.
And did any of those live rounds that were taken from PDQ have the same projectile shape as the projectile on the live rounds from the set of Rust?
No.
You spoke to Mr. Bowles. You indicated that you had of the live rounds that you took to the set of 1883. There were three projectile types. Is that correct?
It is.
Did all three of those types come back to PDQ?
Once we were I'm unaware because once we were done with the cowboy training camp, I never went into that box again, or even the smaller white boxes, into the gray bin or the smaller white boxes. So I didn't take an inventory after we were done.
And the gray bin that you had marked live ammo, was all of the live ammo that you had at PDQ inside that bin?
Yes. Excuse me, all the live ammo from 1883 was in that gray bin. There was self-defense rounds elsewhere within PDQ that were live, not 45 long Colt though.
That's what I was going to ask. What caliber was your self-defense rounds?
357, 38 special, and 300 blackout.
Okay. Approximately how many firearms does PDQ own?
Hundreds.
Do you keep all of them at the Albuquerque location?
No.
Do you have another location?
I do.
Where's that?
It's in Lake Havasu City, Arizona.
You were asked a series of questions about primed cases. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
What is exactly a primed case?
The primed case is a case, could be a shotgun shell with just a primer, but we differentiate a prime case from a blank in that there's no additional charge of gunpowder to make a report, a noise, a bang, or a puff of smoke. And so it's a good training tool. It's a loud cap gun when it goes off. It helps initiate action on a set where there needs to be choreography of movement. And if you add talcum powder, it provides a bit of a puff to it.
So a primed case is just simply an empty brass, I'm going to suggest brass, I know it doesn't have to be brass, shell casing with a live primer. Is that right?
That's correct.
But it has no gunpowder.
No gunpowder.
And it has no projectile.
Definitely not. That would be a live round.
Can a primed case kill someone?
It can lead. Yes, it can. In a number of different ways.
How would that happen?
Well, in the Brandon Lee situation, a prime case initiation of the primer was enough to deliver the bullet, the projectile, into the barrel, causing what's called a squib load. And in that instance, what happened is the prop crew was unaware of what had happened. They emptied what were supposed to be dummy rounds, and they were not, because the live primer thus makes them something other than. But
let me ask you this. In order for a primed case to hurt someone in the manner that you're describing, such as the incident with Brandon Lee, there has to be a projectile somewhere, right?
Yes.
And in that case, there was a projectile lodged in the barrel of the gun.
Correct.
Okay. But the primed case itself, just the empty casing and the live primer, that's not going to kill anybody.
Highly doubtful that
Right.
it would cause injury. Yes.
Okay. You said that it sounds like a loud pop gun.
It sounds like a loud cap gun.
Cap gun, I'm sorry. Because the primer has a small amount of explosive substance, and it's that lights the gunpowder that emits the projectile, correct?
That's correct.
Were all of your 45 long Colt caliber live rounds that you had at PDQ, were they all taken by the Sheriff's Department?
Yes.
You were asked some questions about Starline brass casings. Is Starline brass a very common casing?
It's one of the primary sources of cases for Joe Swanson. But I've come to learn that even the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department uses it as one of their duty ammos.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the package that you received from Ms. Gutierrez after she finished her work on the old way. You indicated that there were some leather belts, but you didn't inventory those.
That's correct.
Did you notice, were there appearing to be dummy rounds in those leather belts?
Yes.
Did you inventory those?
I did not.
Were those your property?
No.
When you received the package from Ms. Gutierrez, did it also include firearms?
Not in the box with the gun leather. There was at least one replica firearm within that box. In separate cases, I believe there are probably 2 Pelican type hardened cases that contain firearms as well as other replicas. And the box just containing the leather did not have firearms in it.
But you did receive a box from Ms. Gutierrez that she shipped to you from Montana that contained firearms, is that right?
Correct, yes.
And those were shipped to you because they were your firearms, right?
Some of them were, yes. Some of them were also fails.
Okay. When you received the box that contained the firearms, was there anything concerning about the state they were in?
Yes. The primary concern is that some of them were loaded.
Mr. Kenney, you said that some of the guns were loaded.
Yes.
What were they loaded with?
What I found out that they were loaded with dummy rounds in the end.
And why was that concerning to you that the guns had been shipped to you loaded with dummy rounds? So whenever you're ready, I'm ready. Okay.
Well, because the assumption is that one, guns are always loaded unless you verify that they are not, and 2, that rounds are live unless you validate that they are dummy rounds. And the fact that a couple, I believe it was from memory, a couple of revolvers were loaded with rounds leads me to default that I have to assume these are live rounds until I validate that each and every one of the rounds are dummy rounds and that the guns are completely empty. So there was some sweaty palms that moment.
Okay. I'm going to shift gears here. I'm going to show you what is already in evidence as State's Exhibit 168. I want you to have a look at this photo and tell me if the projectile shapes that you described to Mr. Bowles are present in this photo.
It looks 99% are semi-wad cutter bullets. There's an oddball right in the middle of the photo.
Where can you use your screen? Oh, that's the oddball. Okay, sure.
Yeah, that has a projectile that I don't remember seeing. It's neither a semi-wad. They probably would consider that some variation of a wad cutter, but it almost looks like a truncated cone type projectile.
Okay, and you had and truncated cones were one of the projectiles that you recall from 1883, correct?
Yeah, the cowboy training camp.
All
Yes.
right. I'm going to show you what's already in evidence as State's Exhibit 171. How would you describe those?
That's another variation of a semi-wad cutter.
Okay. Would you consider that a truncated cone?
No.
All right. I'm going to show you what is already in evidence as State's Exhibit 57. Would these be a primed case?
Well, I can't see what's on the opposite end away from the nickel primer. Is there a projectile on the end?
For the purposes of this question, let's assume that there is no gunpowder in those casings and there is no projectile at the other end.
Yeah, I would call these a spent case because the primers have been hit. But at the same time, we have to assume that any primer is potentially live, even though it's been struck, because it could be a hard primer. But commonly, if somebody, the layman took a look at this picture and said, well, what is that? I would say a spent case casually, but I would not make a dummy round out of that.
Sure. In order for a primed case to be a primed case, it has to have an unstruck primer, correct?
Yes, and we assume that it's not an inert primed case. If we're saying, we need to initiate some kind of action with the least amount of noise, I would call up Joe Swanson and say, I need a box of 50 prime cases.
Okay. But those don't appear to be that to you, do they?
They don't. I don't know what that is, to be honest with you. It could be in the providing weapons and blanks and dummy rounds to production for film. I don't know what that is. I mean, casually, I would say, if I was just a shooter out there, I would say, no, it's a spent case.
Right. It looks like a spent casing.
Yeah.
All of the dummies that you provided to the set of Rust, the 45 long Colt dummies that came directly from you, did all of them rattle?
Yes.
Did you provide any dummy rounds to the set of Rust that did not rattle?
I did.
Which ones were those?
Those were the 44 Henry copper plated rounds.
And those are completely different looking than any of the 45 long Colt dummies, correct?
Correct. They haven't made 44 Henry since the pre-1900.
So the 44 Henrys, how do you know that those are dummies?
Well, they don't make them anymore. And
how do you know they're dummies if they don't rattle?
It's a problem. You assume that they're live then.
Is there a hole in the side? How do you know it's a dummy?
You don't. That's a problem.
There's no hole in the side.
There's no hole in the side.
Do you know whether or not, did you say they were 4470s?
44 Henry.
44 Henry. Do you know whether any of the 44 Henrys were ever even used on the set of Rust?
No,
You don't know?
no. And to be clear, the 44 Henrys don't have a traditional primer. You cannot reload them. They're like a 22 rimfire. It's the same thing. It's just an oversized version of that.
All right. You were asked some questions about how many times you called Detective Hancock. Why did you call her so many times?
Just to aid in the investigation, whatever she needed, or if I found something that I thought she might want to see, or if I had any questions. It was routine for us to be in communication.
Okay. You made a statement on cross-examination that you didn't want to work. I think it was in a text message, maybe, that you didn't want to work with Ms. Gutierrez in the future. Is that correct? Do you recall making that statement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Why didn't you want to work with her in the future?
Well, the issue of loading a full load blank with a horse in the vicinity is a huge violation of an armorer's work.
So why don't you explain to the jury what you're talking about? Because I don't think that we've addressed that issue yet. Was there an issue that came to your attention with regard to the set animals and a full load blank?
There was several days prior, and I don't know exactly when it happened. Sarah Zachary called to discuss a number of things, including her concern.
And I'm gonna stop you right there.
Oh,
I got it.
yep.
Did you receive information that there was an issue with a full load blank and an animal?
Yes.
Okay, stop there. Generally speaking, explain to the jury what types of blanks are to be used around animals, what types are not, and why, having nothing to do with what happened on Rust.
In general, we have several iterations of blank loads, and the idea is that we always want to use the least amount of noise and gunpowder for the effect necessary. And so if ultimately we could get away with using nothing but a prime case, that would be ideal.
Sir, in terms of blanks, what are the appropriate size blanks to use around horses on a movie set?
Horses and kids, no greater than 1/4 load.
So is there a blank load that is less than a 1/4 load?
There is 1/8 as well. Yes.
Okay. Why is it not advisable to use full load blanks around set animals?
Well, it's frankly, it's considered animal cruelty.
Maybe
Okay, Mr. Kenney, we're going to move on. You were asked some questions about making dummy rounds into live rounds. Do you recall those questions from Mr. Bowles?
I do.
So it sounds like that would be a bit of a complicated process. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the opposite. Would it be considerably easier to turn a live round into a dummy?
It would be not. It would be. It's not the ideal situation, again, especially if we're talking about.
I'm not asking what's ideal. I'm asking, would it be easier?
There's one less step. Well, no, actually, we're excluding. You'd have to press out the primer. It's less complicated.
So if one were to try to turn live rounds into dummy rounds, would they need any special equipment?
They would need full reloading.
I'm just asking you if they would need special equipment.
Yes.
Is one of the pieces of equipment that they might need an inertia puller?
The bullet puller, yes. A kinetic puller would be one of them, yes.
All right, thank you. You were asked some questions about your training of Ms. Zachary. Did you train Ms. Zachary specifically on how to handle a single action Army revolver?
No.
You were asked you were shown a series of photos and asked about Joe Swanson labels. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Mr. Ball's going to come up here real quick. All right. I'm going to show Mr. Kenney States Exhibits 193 through 208, and I don't believe there's an objection, and I would ask for permission to publish.
No objection, Your Honor.
Page 193.
To what? 208
208.
is admitted, you may publish.
Now, Mr. Kenney, for the purposes of these questions, I want you to think back to the photo that you saw of the Joe Swanson box that was taken from the set of Rust. Do you recall the photo I'm talking about? If not, I'll show it to you again.
The one on the prop cart, just to be clear.
Yes,
Yes?
the dummies,
Yes.
Joe Swanson dummies,
Yes.
with the JS in the middle.
Yes.
And you indicated that you have never had a box that had that kind of label.
Correct.
So,
Specifically 45 long Colt.
well, let's go through them. States Exhibit 193, are those labels just like the one from the set of Rust?
Well, no.
Right, that's not a trick question.
Seems like it.
How about these? States Exhibit 194, are those just like the ones from the set of Rust?
No.
Same question here, 195. We've got several boxes. If you need me to zoom in on anything, I'm happy to.
No. It's yes. No, I don't. Need you to zoom.
Are any of those the same as the box from Rust?
No.
These, are any of these the same as the box from Rust?
No.
How about these?
No.
And that's, for the record, States Exhibit 197. States Exhibit 198, how about these?
No.
States Exhibit 199, how about these?
No.
State's Exhibit 200, same question.
No.
State's Exhibit 201, same question.
No.
State's Exhibit 202 over on the left, same question.
No.
State's Exhibit 203, same question.
No.
State's Exhibit 204.
No.
State's Exhibit 205.
No.
State's Exhibit 206.
No.
State's Exhibit 207.
No.
State's Exhibit 208.
No.
You testified that you provided some fake guns to for Rust. Is that right?
Yes. Replica guns. Yes.
Did you provide any fake long guns for the set of Rust?
No.
I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Can I have 2 follow-up?
All right.
Mr. Kenney, just 2 follow-up. With regard to turning a live into a dummy, you talked about one piece of equipment. What other equipment would you need to do that?
Well, you need a piece of equipment to press out the primer. You'd need, a press and reload it and installed with a proper reloading dies. You would need some way of measuring powder as well, potentially dispensing the powder. And then you need a piece of equipment to load the primer into the case.
Okay. Now, I think you testified that you didn't train Sarah Zachary on the use of the single action revolver,
Correct.
and she was under your license. So was she not permitted to use that?
No, she was permitted.
Okay. Even without the training?
Well, a cold gun, it's a good question. I don't recall going over, I just don't remember training her to check for safe on a single action army. I think, the thinking was, is Hannah's the armor. She's going to take care of it.
Okay. But you did train her with regard to, you did certify her on your paperwork.
Well, there's no certification.
Okay. Not certification, but you did have her on your paperwork.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, you're excused.
Thank you, Your
Thank you.
Honor.
Next witness.
Just 1 minute to check the list. The state will briefly recall Corporal Hancock.
George, you doing okay? Do you need a bathroom break yet? Okay, sort of, somebody? What? I can't hear you.
Mr. Judge, raise your hand.
Do you swear affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you'll give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
George, I think this person just. You ready now? Okay, go ahead.
Corporal, thank you for your second round on the witness stand. As a sworn law enforcement officer, are you familiar with the crime of negligent use of a firearm?
Yes.
And what are the different ways that the elements of negligent use of a firearm can be fulfilled.
Can we approach?
All rise.
All right, you may be seated.
All right, Corporal, we're going to move on. Were you present in the courtroom when Mr. Haig was doing his demonstration with his single action army?
Yes, I was.
And as a trained law enforcement officer, are you proficient in firearms?
Fairly proficient.
Have you been able to access that gun that Mr. Haig was using for his demonstration today?
Yes.
And did you attempt to view the barrel of the gun without removing the cylinder?
Yes.
Were you successful?
Yes.
You were?
Well, sorry, in looking at it, yes, but not fully.
Okay, so why don't you explain to the jury what you did in order to try to do a barrel check for debris or items in the barrel without removing the cylinder?
Okay. So with the revolver that Mr. Haig had brought in, what I did was essentially I took the hammer to half-cock, which would allow that cylinder to spin freely. So then I tried to look down the barrel, kind of from the side of that revolver. You can see a little bit of light shining through it, but you cannot fully see like an unobstructed barrel view when you're looking down it. So it's essentially what I would kind of consider looking like at a corner. So you're not really able to see, parts of that corner. Next, I pulled the hammer fully back all the way to see if you could see where the firing pin goes into that cylinder. So I tried to look down that way to see if I could see the entirety of the barrel. Again, that hole it's too small. I could see light shining through, but not enough to where I could say that the barrel was, completely empty, or that I would be confident enough to say that there wasn't anything in the barrel. And then the last thing that I did uncomfortably is I actually took that revolver and with it at the full cock position, I actually looked down the barrel of that gun and used a light source because it was really hard to see in it with it being, it's dark, it's a darker barrel. So I looked, actually had that barrel pointing at my face, and to try to look down it, too dark to see it just normally. So I used a light source to try to look down. But again, when you're shining that light source down the barrel, you're having to move in different directions. So personally, I wouldn't comfortably say that that the barrel would be free of anything like debris or any sort of particles in those checks.
All right, thank you. Shifting gears, are you familiar with the name Brian Norvell?
Yes.
And do you know whether or not he was interviewed in this case?
Yes.
You know, or he was?
He was.
Okay. And were the defense attorneys present for that interview?
Yes, they were.
Have you listened to the entire interview?
Yes, I have.
Did the defense, and let me ask you, in terms of let's go back to State's Exhibit 2, in terms of Mr. Benavidez's video, who is Brian Norvell on that video?
So in that lapel video, Brian Norvell is the individual that brings that prop cart over in front of the patrol unit to Lieutenant Benavidez. And he's the same individual that reaches his hand over the crime scene tape to pick something up off the cart.
Approximately how long was the interview that you listened to?
It was about an hour and 45 minutes, give or take.
Did anyone from the defense ask Mr. Norvell any questions?
No.
Were you present in the courtroom when Mr. Bowles asked Mr. Kenney approximately how many times he called you? And I think Mr. Kenney agreed it was approximately 40 times.
Yes.
How many times did Mr. Bowles call you?
Quite a bit. Not just calls, but also emails and text messages.
Would you say it was more than 40 times?
I'd say at least around there.
And how many times have I called you?
A handful, maybe between 5 and 10.
All right, thank you. I'll pass the witness. Oh, sorry.
Cross exam.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Corporal Hancock, isn't it true that I'm representing Ms. Gutierrez Reed in this case, and I called you and emailed you in that capacity?
Yes.
And Seth Kenney, on the other hand, is a potential suspect in the case, right?
According to who?
Well, you're the investigator. Did you ever look at him as a potential suspect?
Yeah, he was investigated.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking you. Do you normally talk to potential suspects that many times in a case?
I don't think there's a limit to how much we talk to them.
With regard to the barrel obstruction you looked at, you did that. You're not an expert in inspecting firearms.
No.
And you said you're fairly proficient, but you don't know, for example, the tools that are used. You didn't have a tool with you?
No, that was just by eye.
Okay. So you just did kind of a casual attempt, but you're not an expert at doing that, are you?
I tried to replicate the way that was said that the barrel checks were done.
Well, you didn't have the tool. You just said that.
Correct.
And did you do this outside?
It was done inside.
Yeah, and are you aware the light is quite a bit different when you do it outside?
Correct.
So you said even doing it inside under less favorable lighting conditions, you were still able to see some light coming through it, correct?
Yes.
And you didn't replicate it outside, did you?
No, that's why I used a light source.
Okay, and you knew this was being done outside on the rest side.
I would assume so, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it was done inside as well.
Well, you don't know that.
Correct.
So you're assuming. So your demonstration did not repeat the same conditions either that were done on the rest side, did it?
Again, I can't say the exact way that it was done on Rust.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, witness.
State calls Mike Primeau.
Stand before the judge, raise your hand.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you'll give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, have a seat, talk into the microphone. Do you need any water?
Thank you, Your Honor. Floor would be great, thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. Would you state your full name for the record, please?
Good afternoon. Michael Allen Primeau.
Mr. Primeau, how are you currently employed?
I am employed through a company called Primeau Forensics, where I am a partner. The firm specializes in the analysis of digital multimedia evidence, so audio recordings, video recordings, and image recordings used in litigation.
Can you summarize for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury your education and background and experience in this field?
Sure. So I began my education and training with the University of Lawrence Technological University in Southfield, Michigan. I obtained a bachelor's in audio engineering technology. From there, I started getting training from LEVA, which is the Law Enforcement and Emergency Services Video Association. I pursued LEVA training 1 through 4 and became a certified forensics video technician. I've also received training in the products for image and video enhancement through one of the popular vendors is Amped, as well as Input Ace, formerly known as Axon Investigate. I've also received training from Leica in the analysis and use of 3D laser scanning technology, Medex Forensics, which is another forensic tool used to authenticate multimedia evidence. And I think that covers it.
Do you belong to any professional or scientific organizations?
I do. I'm currently a member of SWIGDE, which is the Scientific Working Group on Digital Evidence. They're an organization that generates best practices in digital multimedia forensics, as well as digital forensics. So audio forensics, video forensics, image forensics, computer forensics, which includes cell phone forensics. And then they also have a quality committee that handles the quality control for digital forensics. I'm currently serving as the video chair with the video committee. I'm also a member of the Audio Engineering Society, the International Association for Identification, and LEVA.
And sir, can you, how long have you been in this field?
I've been practicing for a little over 10 years now.
And during that time, who have some of your clients been or parties that you've assisted?
So I've worked for both sides of the court on criminal as well as civil cases. So both the defense as well as the plaintiff for civil cases, and for criminal cases, the prosecution and the defense. I've contracted for the DOD, the DOJ, the FBI, the FDA, and several attorney general's offices. So a lot of attorneys.
And specifically, have you been qualified as an expert in the areas of audio or video and image forensics?
Yes, I have.
How many times have you been qualified as an expert in those areas?
I have given testimony as an expert a little over a dozen times in various courts throughout the United States. And then I've also provided deposition testimony, probably about the same, maybe a little more.
Your Honor, I would ask the court to recognize Mr. Primeau as an expert in the areas of audio, video, and image forensics.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, so you are recognized as an audio, video, image forensics expert.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can everyone hear me okay? I feel like I'm not talking directly into the microphone. That's a little better. Thank you.
The acoustics in the room are a little strange.
Okay, it's good to know.
How did you become involved in this case?
We were contacted initially to examine several sources of digital images that were captured from a variety of devices by Ms. Morrissey.
And Did you prepare a report?
Yes, I did.
And was your work peer reviewed?
Yes, my work was technically peer reviewed by a colleague of similar qualifications.
And is that what peer review means? You give it to someone else in the field and they double check your work?
That's correct, to ensure the accuracy of the application of the methodology, as well as the opinions offered. It's recommended that reports are technically peer reviewed by a colleague that has similar qualifications.
Okay. I'm going to show you some exhibits. We're going to get ourselves set up. Mr. Bowles, do you want to come up here and have a look? Let's hold off on that one for just a second. All right. Mr. Primeau, I am showing you what is already admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 118. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And is this an image that I provided you to do some enhancement on?
It appears so, yes.
And is there a particular part of this image that you were asked to enhance or clarify?
Yes, so the area specific.
George, will you show him how he can touch and clear?
Okay, so this is a touch screen.
Let's see if I can do this. That works. So the arrow indicates the section of the image that was the focus of the request, which appears to be some sort of ammunition for enhancement as well as enlargement of the image.
Okay, I'm going to show you what I have marked as State's Exhibit 178. And I would ask the court to admit it, and I would ask for permission to publish.
No objection.
States 178 is admitted, you may publish.
Mr. Primeau, can you explain to the jury what we're looking at in State's Exhibit 178?
Sure. So the tool that was used primarily throughout the course of the investigation is called AMP5, which is a audio or an image and video analysis tool, not audio analysis, with which when you bring the image into the tool, it performs a non-destructive workflow that allows us to clarify or identify specific regions of the imagery, which is shown on the right-hand side of the screen as the clarified identification for the version that was enhanced. Clarification and enhancement kind of are synonymous with the legal admissibility. The image on the left is a specific filter arrangement in the tool that allows us to compare what was originally cropped or selected and then what was clarified, what processes were applied. So we can see, in accordance with best practices, what exactly happened between the two components, the two sections that were cropped.
So when you attempted to clarify the image, Is there a reason that you weren't able to make it less blurry?
So I applied a de-blur, several de-blurring processes to try to clear up that blurriness that you're seeing in the image. And they were unsuccessful at being able to accurately make it so that it was perfectly in focus again. So there were likely a number of reasons as to why that portion of the imagery became blurry. So light level adjustments were applied. If memory serves, sharpening, which improves the edge detail against different edges. And then of course, enlargement or resizing of the image.
And sir, the fact that this portion of the image that I asked you to take a close look at, the fact that that is in the background of the photo, how does that affect things?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, if I go back to is the ammunition in the foreground of the photo or the background?
It's in the background, yes.
How does that affect whether it's blurry or not, if it does?
It doesn't necessarily affect it from a clarification perspective. It wasn't so far out of blur that I would consider it unreliable to make determinations from. We can still see a lot of information in that background. It wasn't like those objects were several hundred feet or even further away from the focus of the camera. But that being further back in the scene does complicate our ability to de-blur it effectively.
And is that because they are blurry in the original image?
Yes, they're out of focus on some level, yes.
All right. I'm going to go back to States Exhibit 178. Just by looking at the images, are you able to, do you notice different colors of metal in the center of what appears to be ammunition?
I do, yes.
What are those colors?
The colors appear to be visually dissimilar in terms of color as well as light. The area depicted here as with the arrow, the center part, my understanding is that it's some sort of primer of that ammunition component, is a darker region than the area that's depicted by this arrow on the right, which is brighter.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I'm showing you what is already in evidence as States Exhibit 162, where you provided this image for clarification and forensic work.
Yes, I was.
And was there a particular part of this image that I asked you to focus on?
Yes, so the section identified by the arrow here is the section of the screen that was of interest for clarification, so enhancement, as well as resizing or enlargement of that imagery.
And were you able to enlarge and clarify that image?
Yes, that section of the image was suitable for clarification, and then exhibits were generated, enlarged. In the compare and original format that we saw earlier, where it's the side-by-side, as well as a picture-in-picture style within the tool AMP5.
How do you know whether or not the image is appropriate for clarification?
There are several components that we evaluate when we receive the images. Things like, are the objects high enough resolution or pixels? So every picture is made up of lots of little squares that are pixels. And if the resolution of that picture is limited, then the enlargement process could produce inaccurate results for clarifying or making that image bigger. In addition, the position of those objects within the scene, the light level of that scene. So is the image too dark that we can't actually restore or enhance those sections to make them more visible to the human eye, as well as things like compression, image compression or data compression, which can reduce the amount of information that was originally captured by the device or introduce information that wasn't originally there. So we evaluate all of these components prior to engaging with an enhancement and applying that enhancement methodology, which was ultimately reported back to Ms. Morrissey prior to beginning.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to show you what I have marked as State's Exhibit, is it 176? Your Honor, for the record, Mr. Bowles does not have an objection to any of these exhibits. So I would ask that 176 be admitted into evidence and obviously for publishing.
176 is admitted and may publish.
Mr. Primeau, what are we looking at here?
This is a clarified exhibit that depicts that region of interest, which is demonstrated in the lower right-hand corner, that has been enhanced using sharpness, light level adjustments, as well as it's a picture-in-picture style, but a zoom, if you will, of the area of interest, which is the ammunition and it appears to be some sort of container.
Thank you. This is State's Exhibit 177. I'd like to move it into evidence and publish it.
No objection, Your Honor.
177 is admitted, you may publish.
Mr. Primeau, can you describe what we're looking at here?
This is a demonstrative exhibit that shows the original frame picture that was processed or clarified on the left-hand side of the screen, which has been, if memory serves, rotated slightly so that we can better see it within this exhibit. Light level adjustments, so shadow and highlight improvements, sharpening, and then enlargement of the pixel region. So that's the original version, and then on the right-hand side, all of those processes were applied, a side-by-side exhibit.
Are you able to see, just by using your eyes, a slight difference in the color of the primers of the ammunition on the top area of that styrofoam insert and the ammunition here in this lower section?
Yes. So these two things that we're evaluating are visually dissimilar. Oh. In terms of light and color.
And while you have testified that you can see the difference, are there some things that you can do in order to verify that they are actually different colors?
There are some tests that we can apply to analyze that information on a deeper level, which is at its core evaluating how the technology works. So in this case, it was some sort of Apple device, iOS device, and whether or not that information that was being collected by the electronics within that device was being accurately communicated to that digital format. So there's a test that I applied throughout the analysis. On this particular image, I was not confident in my ability to do so.
To verify it?
Correct. To verify that those tonal values, those color and luma values are in fact dissimilar.
So just to be clear, your testimony is you can see the difference, but you are not able to digitally verify it.
That's correct.
Okay. Let's switch over for a video. And of course, unfortunately, that requires me to change devices. Thank you for your patience. Unplug. like to play what has been marked as State's Exhibit 187. Your Honor, the foundation for these videos was laid by the gentleman from Production Outfitters, and I would ask for permission to publish. Sorry, 187.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, 187 is admitted. You may publish.
Sir, were you asked to review a couple of videos and take those videos and enhance still frames within the videos?
Yes, I think it was, if memory serves, more than a couple, but yes. Sorry.
Okay. This is State's Exhibit 187. Do you recognize this video?
I do, yes.
And is this one of the videos that you digitally enhanced for me?
That is correct.
You know, and quite frankly, I understand that we can't hear it, but whatever is being said is not relevant. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the audio. Okay.
Okay, understood.
And what specifically were you asked to do with regard to this video? What was I asking you to look for and try to enhance?
The pixel regions are the areas depicting the ammunition within what's my understanding is a bandolier that Mr. Baldwin is attempting to wear. Several still images were extracted from the video recording for clarification.
And can you see the ammunition with the primer side of the ammunition facing the camera in this still frame?
That is correct.
Would this be an example of some of the still frames that you collected from this video at my request?
I would have to examine the specific video image numbers, but it was in this range that it becomes most visible. I'm uncertain if it's this exact video image. Every video image in a video recording is marked with a frame number, so we count them. We can count them in a linear fashion. I would have to examine the project to know if definitively if it was this video image, but it was in this series of time.
It was one of these still frames in this video.
Correct.
And perhaps more than one.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. I am going to play for you State's Exhibit 188. Same issue, Your Honor. Foundation was laid by Production Outfitters, and I would like to move it into evidence and ask permission to publish.
No objection.
States 188 is admitted. You may publish.
Mr. Primeau, were you asked to do basically the same thing with this video?
That is correct.
When the camera was zoomed in here at the beginning, were you able to collect some still frames of the ammunition in that holster?
That is correct.
All right. Because we have to switch devices, I'm going to show you another video from a different time frame.
Okay.
And then we'll move back to the images. So I'm going to show you what is already in evidence as State's Exhibit 164. Do you recognize this video?
I do, yes.
Is this another video that you were asked to conduct a forensic analysis on?
So this video, the way that this device works is actually recording several pictures. And the tool that allows us to interpret those images plays them back in rapid succession, giving the effect that it's a video. This is a product of that proprietary tool from that particular vendor of the camera. But in answer to your question, yes, it is a video, but in its raw format, they're actually multiple pictures.
And what kind of a camera is this? Do you remember what it's called?
This is an RE Alexa Mini, if memory serves.
And in terms of good cameras, bad cameras, sophisticated cameras, simple cameras, where does this camera fall?
The lay interpretation is it's kind of like the Lamborghini of cameras. It's a very high-end tool in comparison to other devices.
All right, thank you, sir. Can you see the ammunition there on the left-hand side?
Yes, I don't know for a fact that it is ammunition, but it's my understanding that those are casings of some sort. But yes, that's what it appears to be.
Okay. And is it somewhere in this area where you were able to isolate some still frames? And I'll go ahead and play it for you there.
That is correct. In preparation for my report from my investigation, 4 instances, 4 images were extracted from the tool in a raw RGB TIFF format. In preparation for testimony, additional images were extracted for review.
And for the record, I am going to show Mr. Primeau States Exhibit 179 through 186. I believe there isn't an objection. I'd like to have them admitted and permission to publish.
No objection.
States 179 through 186 is admitted. You may publish.
Thank you. Mr. Primeau, I'm showing you what's been marked as States Exhibit 179. Can you describe to us what we're looking at here?
This is frame 237 from one of the 2 of the digital video files that we saw that didn't have audio playback. That frame on the left-hand side of the screen is what's been cropped as the area of focus.
And let me stop you real quick. As a point of clarification, I showed you 2 videos of Mr. Baldwin putting on his bandolier, and then there was another video of Mr. Baldwin with a young man. Do you remember those?
Yes, the 2 with the putting on the bandolier is what I was referring to. Yes.
Oh, their monitor isn't working. Sorry. They're already in. Sure, yeah. Sorry.
Hi, chat. I have a few minutes, so I had to pop in because what is this man even testifying to? What is this prosecutor doing? Chat, what is happening? Chat, what is happening? I need you to explain. I am not. I want to see the video.
On monitor if they have difficulty fixing it.
I am so hot. I don't know what's going on with this witness. They should have had him when they had all the rest of the experts. That could be timing.
We don't need to look at it. We know what these images look like.
Well, let me wait.
They should have had him on at the beginning when they introduced the enhanced images and evidence. But I've got about 30 minutes to be with y'all before I have to go board my flight. So I'm not on the plane. No, I would never stream from the plane. I think the FAA has like a lot of rules about that. So no, I'm trying not to be annoying in the Sky Club. I'm trying to be quiet. And the music in the background is something I can't do anything about. So hopefully the sound's not too bad. I know I want to zoom too, we can't. What was the point of recalling the detective? Fuck if I know. She wanted to have the detective give the elements of the crime, which is completely improper and like the worst thing I've ever heard. One of. And then she asked her if she did the experiments with the weapon, but they had a very competent weapons expert, and that detective was not a weapons expert by any means. So I don't know why they did that. It was crazy. And we're getting to closing 3-7. I don't know. I thought the prosecution would be able to close their case before lunch, but I don't know how many witnesses the defense have. So, FaceTime vibes. That's where we're at today. That's exactly. We're just screaming among friends. 11,000 people at the airport with you. I mean, cheers. I'm also trying to eat. You guys, I couldn't let you suffer this afternoon with this. If the prosecution rests, the defense is going to do their motion to dismiss. I really want to see if the judge, I have no faith or confidence, but I really want to see if the judge is going to kick that stupid evidence tampering charge. It's terrible, and I don't think they proved it. I'm also
Come
eating
up.
lunch
He
because
went to get water for the jurors.
travel day, it is so hot. And it's so hard to travel back to Tennessee because it's going to be so cold. Ms. Shea said, I am confusion. I am also confusion. I'm also confusion. I want to see what video and if it even matters. Is it a video for loading the gun? No.
Let me stop for just a moment. Mr. Primeau,
Are we going to back up
the
too?
first set of images that we were looking at with the styrofoam insert sitting on a person's leg and the ammunition in the background that was blurry, were you able to determine the dates that those images were taken?
Yes, the examination of the metadata, which is data about data from the photos, was evaluated in as a part of the enhancement process.
And what was the date?
The date that the metadata interpretation tool is reporting as the date time the original image was captured is October 10th, 2021 at approximately 9 a.m. 42:11 seconds.
Okay. And just to be clear, the videos that we showed you of Mr. Baldwin,
They already showed them, but they didn't admit the evidence.
were you able to determine
That
the
photo
date
is terrible.
of those?
I did not evaluate the date time created information from those.
Okay.
videos, no.
The date is part of
But
what
the
she's
jury can
doing.
rely on
Is the date.
testimony of other witnesses for the appropriate dates for that.
Are you asking a question or are you
And
talking to
then
the jury
we'll
directly?
get to the
Why
next
is there no
one in a
objection?
moment. So let's go ahead and begin again. States Exhibit 179. What are we looking at here?
So
This is a
he enhanced them,
comparison
so they needed
of
to get them into
the
evidence.
specific region that was cropped, demonstrating the bandolier and the ammunition. At frame 237, I don't recall
you,
which
Cindy.
exhibit, which video
Thank
exhibit
you,
this
Sophia.
came from. But as you
Thank you,
can
Virgo.
see here on the left, this is the original information that does not have any clarification, application of any clarification to it. The image on the right is a clarified version that uses resizing of that section to make it larger, light level adjustments, shadow and highlights, shadows, midtones, and highlights, and sharpening.
And sir, in both
They look the
images,
same, sir.
but in
They look
particular
the same.
in the clarified image on the right, are you able to determine that one of the supposed pieces of ammunition seems to have a silver coloring in the center?
Visually, yes. Objectively, through that deeper methodology that I talked about, no, we did not apply that method for verification.
You
Okay.
can't objectively
Let's
verify it, but it's evidence in this trial now.
State's Exhibit 180.
Oh, okay.
Tell us what we're looking at here.
This is another instance, video image 218 from the video exhibit that was isolated. The section on the left-hand side that was cropped is from the original video image. The section on the right was clarified and enlarged. Similar processes were applied.
And in this image, when we compare it to the previous image, that being State's Exhibit 179, do you see that change in color, that silver type color in the same place in both images? And when I mean in the same place, on the same piece of ammunition, or rather where the ammunition is located?
That is correct. Yes, it's a lighter tonal value or representation, which is dissimilar than the other tonal values in chroma and luma, light and color, that appears dissimilar.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 181. Tell us what we're looking at here.
This is frame 237.
More
Similar processes
pictures
were applied.
of the bandolier.
The image on the left-hand side is the original that has not been resized from the video recording. The image on the right is the clarified version that has been resized, enhancement processes applied. And then the entire image was actually resized, I don't think I mentioned this, to format the screen that you're looking at in an HD resolution. So had we not performed that, it would have been a little bit smaller on the screen, because this section was the smallest that we enhanced. Smallest that I enhanced, because the resolution, the picture size from these videos was much smaller than the RE, which is a very high resolution.
I don't know what this witness's schedule was, but he should have been way earlier in the trial. This is not the witness we went on.
Okay.
Am I at the airport?
State's
Yes.
Exhibit 182. Tell us what this is.
This is another representation of frame 218. So when the images were enlarged, two different resizing methods were used to verify that the information that was being enlarged was accurately being done so and wasn't an inaccurate representation when it was made larger. This appears to be the other enhancement version. As you can see, it's kind of like more blocky pixel.
This witness should have done this when
on the right-hand side.
when the other foundational evidence was
Well,
entered.
in all of the images that we've looked at,
But he's laying
in
foundation for the
this-
enhanced images
in
to
this
show that
group
she loaded
of
a live
images,
round into the
179
belt.
through 182, do you see the lighter colored primer in the same position, that being what appears to be the third piece of ammunition from the top?
That is correct.
State's Exhibit 183. What's this?
I'm trying
This
to
is
stay
frame
muted to accommodate for background
175.
noise. Sorry, y'all.
If memory serves, this is from the other video recording because there's a clear indication of the front of the ammunition. I'm considering the front to be where the projectile is located. In which case, this exhibit on the left is the original section of the video image that was selected, cropped, enlarged. And the clarified version that has clarified processes applied. One particular process that wasn't included on the others is a process called deep blurring. So kind of refocusing that image that we're seeing so it's clearer.
Can you see what appears to be that same silver coloring in the piece of ammunition that's third from the top?
It's more difficult to see in this version, but there are slight, the pixel information is there. Yes.
Okay. State's Exhibit 184.
Stop
Same
it.
question.
It's just
Yes.
same question, same answer. Just stop.
Same to
Just
everything.
The dissimilar, yes. So the section on the left is the isolated version, clarified version on the right that has been resized, and there is a dissimilar tonal value visibly between those. Specifically, we examined the
this
two
jury never wants
ammunition
to
that
hear
were side by side.
dissimilar tonal value again.
Thank you.
They're trying to show that
State's
Hannah was
Exhibit
negligent in
185.
loading the
Same
bandolier.
thing, just
The
different
bandolier
frame.
is not the gun.
That is correct.
We get it.
State's Exhibit 186. Same thing, different frame.
This is another version of an alternate resizing algorithm that was used to make the image bigger for verification that no additional information was added to the recording that rendered determinations inaccurate. Like nothing was added to the video that misrepresents what was originally there.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let's move to the images that you were able
More images
to
you can't see.
analyze from the RE
Great.
video. I'm not going to play the video on this device because it will cause the system to crash. So I'm going to
Thanks
move
for the
to
explanation. Are we going to see the video? Did they enhance
State's
the
Exhibit
video?
189. I would like to have 189 entered into evidence and permission to publish.
A lot of these were shown earlier, but weren't
No, 189 is
entered.
the digital
So
image that
now
you
we're here
created
trying to enter.
from the video.
Case 189 submitted, you may publish.
Like the attorneys are just
All
working
right,
it out
Mr.
themselves.
Primeau,
Yeah.
what are we looking at here? And if you recall, was there a date associated with the video from the RE?
May I have a moment to look at my report?
Certainly.
Thank you.
I just put a cracker in my mouth. No, you don't have a moment. Some of these photos, the enhanced photos, they already entered into evidence. Those are the one with the like call outs from Hannah's lap. The rest of these seem to be stills from that video, but I think the jury already gets it. And again, the question at the end of the day is, did she check the rounds before putting them
The
in the
creation
weapon?
date
Not into the
associated
bandolier.
with
They're
the
trying to show
metadata
overall
from
recklessness.
the RE
That's why we're
Raw
here.
proprietary
Recklessness.
tool. It's a program that allows us to examine the images captured directly from the RE camera in their raw format. It is reporting a date of October the 18th, 2021. This creation time is reporting 5:36 and 49 seconds.
Does that tell you that that's the exact date that the image was recorded on the camera?
In accordance with the data that the camera was communicating to the file, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what are you able to see in terms of this same pattern that we're looking for with regard to silver
already at
colored
repetitive.
centers of what appears to be ammunition?
I don't understand the question.
Well, let me back up. What are we looking at here? Or do we have an original and a clarified?
Yes, so the image on the left is a selection of that region of the, my understanding is it's a bandolier or storage of some sort of those ammunition. And then the image on the right is the clarified or enhanced version of that image on the left.
And are you able to see, just from looking at the photo, that the top two items appear to have silver centers where the last four appear to have a different color center?
Leading.
They
All leading.
appear to be lighter in tonal values. I don't know if I can classify them as silver, but
Okay, understood. I'm sorry.
It appears to be, if I was asked what material that looks like, it looks like silver, but whether or not it actually is, I haven't been able to verify that, but yes, visually dissimilar.
And let me
They
ask
brought
you,
a
in
whole
terms
ass
of
expert in
the
here to say
date
it
from the
looks like
RE
silver.
camera, does that,
Really?
does a
Really?
date and time have to be set on the camera properly in order for you to receive that, the proper information through the metadata for the date of the recording?
That is how most camera devices work. I don't recall specifically if the RE was set, this particular RE, by the operator, but that's common for digital cameras.
He's like, oh, I don't know.
And
I
were
don't know.
you,
I don't know if
sir,
the date and time is
able
set properly.
to
Nobody asked. It's
do
not
a
in
total
evidence.
value analysis on this?
Yes, I was.
And again, the total value analysis is just a way of doing an additional verification. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what were the results of your total value analysis?
So with respect to the RE images, there were no artifacts due to compression. These images were captured in a raw format, which means when the light information hit the camera's components, which is called a sensor, it's going to capture that information in raw and communicate that to a digital file, with which it's not going to make determinations about what do we take away or what do we add to make this file smaller. An interpretation of that process was done using a filter within the AMP5 tool called channel selector. And that evaluates the specific RGB color spaces that those tonal values live essentially in that raw format. And through an
The jury is
evaluation
now wishing they could
of
fast
the
forward
green
as well.
channel, which is the most sensitive to the human eye, there is a distinct dissimilarity in the luma and chrominance values between those two sections. And when these images were clarified, enhanced, 2 of the 4 images that I examined, through adding of light to make the images brighter, this section, the middle section of that piece of ammunition, i.e. the primer, became overexposed, which means it had brighter values than other primers throughout that picture. And the tool reported that those values
Expert
were
opinion.
going beyond
It's
the technology's
silver-ish.
ability to capture it. So what does that mean? It means that that section was documented by that device brighter than the other primers throughout the picture.
Would you say that the use of the tonal value analysis did in fact verify that? It verified that it is brighter than the others?
That is correct.
Sorry about that. And States Exhibit 190, we would ask the court to move this into evidence and publish.
No objection, Your Honor.
Case 190 is admitted.
I don't know if any of this is going to help the jury.
Mr. Primeau,
I'm
what are
waiting
we
to see the
looking at?
videos before I just lose my mind.
This is a exhibit that demonstrates the selected area, approximate selected area as the other images we saw, but it's not in the compare original format. It's just a picture-in-picture that is clarified, enhanced.
All right, thank you, sir. Were you also asked to perform a forensic analysis on still frames from a body-worn camera worn by a police officer?
That is correct.
And for the record, just so that the jury is aware, the body-worn camera that
Almost missed a flight that way.
Mr. Primeau analyzed was States Exhibit 2. I'm not going to play
Is it Primeau or
because you already have
Primeau?
it. We've already watched it.
Mr. and
I
Biggin.
will, however, pull up State's Exhibit 192.
Is she just talking to the jury? Is she asking a
and
question? What in the
ask
lawyering
the
is
court
happening
to
right now?
admit 192 and permission to publish.
Stream of consciousness is not a form of direct examination, ma'am.
No objection, Your Honor.
192 is admitted, you may publish.
Mr. Primeau, what are we looking at here?
This is a video image that was selected from the BWC recording. I don't recall from the file title which particular frame.
BWC
this
body
was,
worn camera.
but it's a picture-in-picture process. Using Annotate, we can select that portion of the screen and enlarge it, resize it, add additional enhancement processes, including adjustments to the lighting, sharpening as well. So it's an enhanced version of that frame with a picture-in-picture effect.
And the label of that box still appears to be pretty blurry and not legible. Were you not able to clarify it any more than that?
That is correct.
Okay.
The compression artifacts as a result of the spatial resolution, the video quality was insufficient to enhance to make that kind of identification.
And when you say the video quality was insufficient, is there a considerable difference between the quality of a police officer's body-worn camera, this type of camera in particular, and a camera such as the RE camera that was being used on the set of Rust?
Yes, a body-worn camera, although effective, its design is to surveil. It's a surveillance camera that's worn by an officer, so they record for long periods of time. Significant differences in intended use between a cinematography camera and a body-worn camera.
And finally, let's have a look at
Riveting testimony within the common knowledge of literally all humans.
State's Exhibit 191.
Fascinating.
Looks like these aren't too different, but go ahead and tell us what you did.
This is the original information that was selected with the enhancement tool on the left-hand side, and then a compare original filter was applied to demonstrate the clarified version with processes to enhance it.
And why does it appear that there is actually less detail in terms of the label on the box in the clarified image as opposed to the original image? Let me ask you this. When you clarify an image, do you brighten it?
Yes, it's one of the processes to brighten it. If memory serves, when I was trying to enhance for the request was to examine any identifiers on the box, not specifically that little 2 lines of some sort of information, but to see if there were any identifiers anywhere on that container. So the light was improved to be able to
Accurate, nothing has been clarified.
Can brightening an image actually reduce some of the detail in the image?
It can, yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Bowles, if there was ever a time
Cross-exam.
to bring your A game in cross-examination,
Good afternoon.
this is
Primeau, how
wild.
much were you paid for your work in this case and your report? And
The firm Primeau Forensics was compensated a value somewhere in the 10,000 range.
And in the process that you
10K for the photo enhancements.
Images like
If y'all want to know
a
what
picture,
field to go into.
you extract one from media, and then you use tools to try to clarify them. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier in your testimony, there's certain things that can cause distortion. I think you said if something's low resolution, is that right?
I don't remember saying specifically distortion.
Okay. Yeah, just tell me, what are some of the things that can cause you not to be able to get that clarification?
I don't understand the question.
In some of the images, it looked like at the end, the ones we couldn't see anything. It didn't clarify it, so we couldn't see what was on the box. What prevents that? The resolution originally, or
What is the
or
question?
why can't you
What
get
is
that?
this is the most
resolution
compound,
does play a
difficult to
factor in that,
follow
as well as
statement.
the compression level. So at what point the camera is limiting information to that digital video file. Those are two components. Yes.
Okay. You also said in some of the pictures you could not verify tonal differences. And if I say it wrong, just tell me. But you did a verification process and you couldn't confirm.
That is correct. I was not confident to apply that particular methodology because there were so many unknown variables.
Okay. So given that there's so many unknown
The
variables,
question
some of them
pending
you
is
can
why
say
are we so
that
far in
there
the
were
weeds on
tonal
this?
differences,
That is my
like
question
color
pending.
differences. Some of them you can't. Is that fair?
I don't understand the question.
Some of these pictures you can't be confident that there are tonal differences. Some of them that you looked at, is that what you said?
This witness gave no solid
evaluate
answers,
this
and your
particular
cross-examination
image
is so
to
confusing
answer
that you
question.
can't
I
even
looked
nail
at
him
one
on
of
it.
them.
Sure. Yeah, there were some of them you said I couldn't verify, and we can go back to the number of that. But I'm just trying to get
Yeah,
that.
go back. Go back
Basically,
to the
what
ones
you
you can't
did was
verify.
you clarified and enhanced pictures, and some of them you can tell us the colors are different. Some of them you can't. Is that right?
Go evidence. Go
That
piece
is
by
fair
piece,
to
then,
say
Mr.
that
Bowles.
the
Go piece by piece.
dissimilarities could not be verified in terms of how that technology was actually working when it captured those values. Yes.
And your technology's got to be much more sophisticated. But it's like, you're familiar with iPhones, people can use filters, they can use edits, that kind of thing.
I'm familiar, yes.
Okay, but yours, I mean, basically, you must be using a much more sophisticated tool, correct?
It's a peer reviewable tool that allows us to apply methodology that is widely accepted. So it's
Is it more
repeatable, it's
sophisticated than an
verifiable.
iPhone? No.
It can be evaluated by people of similar qualifications to ensure that it was being applied correctly and effectively to accurately improve the information that's contained.
Was that
within
done
them.
here?
I would say it's relative with respect to sophistication as to what we're comparing it to.
To an iPhone?
To a filter.
Oh, to a
I
filter.
think iPhone filter is what you had said.
Yes, iPhone filter. Yeah.
But yeah, to a one-to-one comparison, we'd probably have to evaluate which particular filter, but
Okay.
there's no magic in the tool if that's what I think we're trying to evaluate.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was trying
There's
to ask.
no
So it's
magic in
similar
any
to a
of this
filter.
right now.
They are filters. That's
Okay.
correct, yes.
Okay.
The filters that are being applied.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing for you.
They did all that to argue. He basically put an iPhone filter on it in closing.
Sir,
All
in
that.
the images
Oh my God, I can't.
from the videos of Mr. Baldwin putting on the bandolier, those two videos that you extracted images from, the fact that you see the same color difference in the primer of the piece of ammunition that is in the third position from the top, the fact that you are able to see that color difference repeatedly in different frames,
Is there a question, or are you just making a statement and you're going to say right?
indication
Because
of
that's leading.
reliability that that center primer is actually a different color than the others.
Leading.
Does that make sense?
I think so, yes. So with respect to forensic image video analysis, we're evaluating things from an objective perspective. There are components to that methodology that evaluate context, and they are best practices. I was not asked to evaluate those things with this case. If I understand your question, I think I do. From a contextual perspective, yes, it does, because there are multiple instances across multiple frames with each of the devices that capture digital video files, which means more images than just one, like an iPhone. So yes, contextually, it does demonstrate that. Yes.
Some additional level of reliability.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. I don't have anything else.
Your excuse, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Chat,
Mr.
I adore you.
Rests.
Gotta go catch
Okay, thank
My
you.
flight.
So we
That
are
was your
going
last
to take
witness.
our break for the day.
Way to go
I
out on
have
a bang.
some court I need to do at 4 o'clock. So
Court's done for the day.
the state is rested, so the defense will go forward. Counsel, please approach for a minute.
Court's done for the day. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a wrap up, and then Miguelina can end the stream. Court's done for the day. Court's done for the day. I'm going to just get on a flight and listen to my audiobook because court's done for the day. Let's get a little bit of a wrap up from the Sky Lounge with music in the background because we're professionals here. Okay, the state did not go out with a bang as they wrapped their case. The defense is going to need to make their motion to dismiss because the state still hasn't proved the tampering with evidence charge at all. It should get kicked. I don't know if this judge will do it. I'll be frustrated if she doesn't. I hope we'll get to see those arguments. We might not get to see those arguments in the morning. But the state is rested. We're going to get into the defense case in the morning. I will be home. I can't believe court actually accommodated my schedule today. I am absolutely thrilled. So for a quick zoom, this afternoon we ended up with a kind of wah-wah cross of Seth Kenney and a video expert who enhanced some of the photos to show that maybe the primer was more silver because the state used it early in their case. And then they had the lead detective back on the stand to try to ask questions that couldn't be testified to and to say the defense attorney called me a lot too. Today it seemed like a waste of time for the state. These were not their strongest witnesses. They should have gone out on the civilian witnesses and they should have planned these witnesses earlier. I don't know if they could do that. Expert schedules can be really difficult. Scheduling witnesses is quite frustrating and can be quite hard to do. But these are not the witnesses I would end my case on, surely. But sometimes you have no choice. The closing is going to have to tie all these things together. It looks like the court and defense counsel are wrapping things up, and I am going to have to go board a plane. So I can't believe court is done for the day. I'm going to leave court on just in case the judge says anything else while I have to bounce. And then we will roll the outro and end the stream. Moderators, thank you for holding it down. Law nerds, thank you for being the most incredible community on the internet. I will see all of you back from my home studio tomorrow. Everybody cross your fingers because my flight in Atlanta boards like 3 minutes after my flight from Phoenix lands. So fingers crossed we make our connection and get home on time. And with that, please be wrapping up. Please dismiss the jury.
So tomorrow morning, we're going to have a couple of housekeeping matters. So you all should be downstairs at 10, not 8:30, 10. Okay.
And
so,
I get to sleep in.
I get to sleep in. Good news for a fair amount of you. All right. So please don't talk among yourselves or anyone else about the evidence received here in court. Don't do any research about the Rust Productions or the movie set, et cetera, and the trial.
No court till 10. I don't think we'll get to see the motion to dismiss. They're going to do it in the morning.
All right.
I don't think we'll get to see it. They're going to do it in the morning.
Don't talk among yourselves. Okay.
You did say that.
Good. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Court is done for the day. I'm going to roll the outro and get us out of here. You guys have a great rest of the day. Thank you for being law nerds. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry I didn't get to all of your questions, but we got to get on a plane. So law nerds, you're the best. I'll see you soon.
You can stay up to date with everything I'm covering and fast notifications on our free iOS and Android app at lawnerdapp.com or search the App Store for Law Nerd. You can also follow me around social media, and don't forget to check out my podcast, The Emily Show, with quick bits dropping every Monday, summarizing everything I do here on the live streams on Tuesday and Thursday for when you just have time for the quick bits. Thanks for being a law nerd.